I ran for the door. "Don't go in there!" I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I'm a 27-year-old woman living alone in a small town in Arizona. My name is Laura. This happened to me about 2 years ago, and sometimes, even now, when I close my eyes at night, I relive that moment all over again. The more you try to escape certain memories, the more they cling to you. This was one of those moments I just couldn't shake off. On the morning of that nightmare, I had set off from Los Angeles toward Flagstaff. It was going to be a long drive by myself. My car was old, but since I always made sure to have it serviced on time and properly, I felt confident taking it on long trips. I had my music playing, singing along to my favorite songs from time to time, sipping my coffee, planning to enjoy the journey. But things didn't go as planned. As the sun was setting, on a road near the Grand Canyon, specifically on a more deserted stretch of Interstate 40, my car started to swerve slightly. I immediately pulled over and saw that my front right tire had blown out. This was not good at all. I suddenly remembered I hadn't gotten my tools back from a friend I had lent them to the week before. Then I noticed my phone had no signal. I couldn't reach roadside assistance. As the sky darkened, unease began to settle in my chest. I pulled the car further off the road. I grabbed my flashlight and my bag. I started walking, hoping I'd find a gas station or house a few kilometers away. The road was completely deserted. Only bushes, cacti, and the occasional whoosh of massive trucks zooming past on the opposite lane. Some flashed their high beams and honked as they passed. But I didn't ask for help, too afraid to. A voice inside me kept saying there was a town or gas station nearby, and with that hope, I walked quickly. After about 30 minutes of walking, the sky had grown completely dark, and I heard a vehicle approaching from behind and the sound of brakes. I turned around and was blinded by headlights, but as the vehicle got closer, I realized it was an old black pickup truck. The driver rolled down the window. A middle-aged man with a dirty beard and a cap. "What are you doing out here alone at night?" There was something odd in his voice, but I tried to stay calm. I didn't want to imagine the worst. "My tire blew out. I can't reach a tow truck. Do you know where the nearest town is?" I asked. He paused for a moment, then nodded. "The town's about 40 miles from here. But my house is just ahead, in the woods. You can stay the night at our place if you want. In the morning, we'll call a mechanic first thing. We have phone signal out there." A part of me screamed to say no, but it was already nightfall, no other cars had passed, and I was exhausted and scared. "Okay," I said. I got into the truck. The first few minutes passed in silence, just the sound of the engine and the headlights lighting up the narrow dirt path. Then the man asked, "You alone?" "Yes," I said shortly. He tilted his head slightly. "Good. My wife is very lonely. Seeing someone new would make her happy," he said. That was the first time I looked into the back seat. It was almost too dark to see, but there was a silhouette. A middle-aged woman, wearing a dirty white dress, hair down to the floor. Her eyes weren't looking at me, but she was breathing. A raspy, uneven breath. I froze in place. The man said about his wife. She hasn't talked much since the accident, but she still gets attached to people. I couldn't say a word. The breathing sound, which I hadn't noticed earlier over the car engine, now felt like it was right by my ear. Soon we arrived at a house surrounded by thick trees, looking completely abandoned. The moonlight barely made it through the branches. The house seemed drowned in darkness. The outer paint had peeled off years ago. Some windows were broken. The rest covered with either cardboard or rusty metal sheets. But a faint yellow light leaking from inside told me someone still lived here. Or at least tried to. We got out of the car. The woman started quietly walking in front of me toward the house. Her walk was odd. Quiet, but mechanical. She didn't look around or speak a word. It was like she knew this place by heart. Like she had been born in this darkness. I, on the other hand, instinctively hesitated. My feet wanted to turn back. A voice inside me kept screaming, "Don't go in there," but I had no other choice. The man opened the door. Its hinges creaked with a high-pitched screech. "Come in," he said. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll take you back in the morning." The woman entered without saying a word. Went straight upstairs like she had always lived there. The man watched her go and nodded. She went to her room. "You can sleep on this couch," he said, walking to the corner of the living room and fiddling with an old, soot-covered stove. As a burnt, metallic smell spread from the stove, the air in the room grew heavier. The inside of the house was indescribably disgusting. A strong smell of mold filled the air, but beneath it was something deeper, more vile, rotting meat, sulfur, and damp wood, as if even the walls of the house were dead. The couch was falling apart. When I sat on it, the frame caved in. The man handed me an old gray torn blanket, but it smelled so horrible I instinctively pulled my hand back. Instead of using it, I wrapped myself in my own coat, arms crossed over my chest. I couldn't sleep. My whole body was on high alert. I kept scanning the room constantly. The ceiling creaked as if someone was slowly walking above. Something was crawling inside the walls, and in time, the sounds began. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but then I realized they were whispers. "Laura! Laura!" It was like my name was echoing from the ceiling, the floor, from inside the walls. I shut my eyes tightly, covered my ears with my hands, but it didn't help. At some point, I must have dozed off. I don't know when, but around 4:30 a.m., a sound startled me awake. A creep, but very close. When I opened my eyes, but this was a different version of her. Her face was completely covered in mud, but the scariest part were her eyes. No pupils, no irises, just pure white, like glass, soulless. Not human eyes, something else, something not of this world. She was wearing a torn, once white nightgown, now turned gray. Dried mud clung to the fabric. The woman took a single step forward. The wooden floor groaned, then she whispered, "You will stay." I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My throat was dry, my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. I was frozen. That's when I heard a growl behind me. I slowly turned around. The man was leaning toward me from behind the seat. There was a wild glint in his eyes, drool dripping from the corners of his mouth, breathing heavily through his nose, just like a predator. At that moment, my body acted on its own. I instinctively reached for my bag. I threw everything I could grab, flashlight, wallet, pen, whatever. Finally, my fingers touched the pepper spray. I pressed it with all my strength and sprayed his face. He screamed and backed off. I ran for the door. It wasn't locked. I hadn't expected that, but luck was on my side. I flung the door open and threw myself outside. I ran into the dark forest under the moonlight. My shoes weren't on properly. They flew off as I ran. Dirt, rocks, thorns. I didn't care. My feet were getting torn up, but I didn't stop. I ran until I couldn't breathe, until my lungs were on fire. With the first light of morning, a road appeared between the trees, and right across from it, a gas station. I ran toward it in tears, out of breath, barefoot, disheveled. I couldn't believe I was still alive. The attendant there called the police. I told the officers everything that had happened, described the man, the truck, the house. They never found that man. And the house I described? It didn't exist. The spot I showed the police was just an empty clearing in the woods. No house, no road. As if it had never been there at all. But the strangest part, in an old file the police showed me, there was a photo of a woman who had gone missing in that exact area 15 years earlier. She was wearing a white dress. My description matched her exactly. After that day, nothing was ever the same. At night, the woman's white eyes still haunt my dreams, and sometimes, when I'm driving down Interstate 40, I swear I can feel someone breathing in the back seat.
Suddenly, I found myself in the middle of the forest. I couldn't scream because my mouth was taped. It smelled like a dead animal. A fun day turned into a nightmare of a night. But it wasn't just that night that became a nightmare. That night was just the beginning. My name is Kyle. I'm 20 years old. I'm alive, yes. But after that night, I learned there's a big difference between living and being alive. People just look at me with pity in their eyes, but they don't know what really happened. It was the end of July. We had gone to Salt Rock Beach, just outside the city on the coast of California. It was about an hour from town, a remote beach where hardly anyone ever came. We thought we could have fun as we pleased. We thought, me, Nate, and Jordan, the three of us have been inseparable since high school. We spent almost the entire summer vacation together, and that day we made a plan for a day trip. The weather was amazing. We swam all day, lit a fire, ate food, and after the sun went down, we started drinking alcohol, played the guitar, and sang songs. We drank so much. If one of us had tried to drive, we would have ended up flying into the sea, crashing into a mountain, or hugging an oncoming car. None of us were in any shape to drive. So, we decided to hitchhike, and we made up a game among ourselves. We'll take turns hitchhiking every car that passes. Whoever gets the car to stop, the other two owe them a drink in the city. We laughed hysterically. We were so drunk we could barely stand straight to hitchhike. We were staggering all over the place. Nate couldn't take it anymore and puked on the roadside. Jordan was in better shape than Nate, but I think I was the least affected by the alcohol. Nate raised his hand for the first car. It drove right past. The second one, Jordan tried. The car slowed down, but probably noticed how drunk we were and sped up. I raised my hand for the third one, but I don't think they even saw me. Fourth, fifth, sixth, same story. Seventh, it was Nate's turn. He nearly stumbled into the road in front of the car. The headlights blinded me as I held onto Nate to keep him from falling. The car slowed down. It was an old car, very old. Must have been a Chevrolet Bel Air. And it came to a full stop. Something about it gave me chills, but I kept quiet. The driver was a strange man in his 40s with gray hair. He was smiling, but there was an emptiness in his eyes. His irises were a dark gray, almost black.
"I'm heading to the city center. Hop in, boys,"
he said. As I tried to get used to the awful smell coming from inside the car, Jordan and Nate had already thrown themselves into the back seat. Nate was shouting with joy, "You guys owe me a drink downtown," though he could barely take another sip. I got in the front seat. The car creaked with every movement. It smelled like something had rotted. I glanced around. The seats were stained. The ceiling looked water-damaged and yellowed. At first, there was silence. Then a short conversation with the man, but I had to think hard to form each sentence. He asked where we were going, what we were doing there, if we had a car. My tongue was twisted, my head was spinning. I turned to check on Nate and Jordan. They had already passed out. The The radio was on, playing something I didn't recognize. After a while, it started to sound distorted, as if it was broken, muttering strange, muffled noises. I felt like the man kept glancing at me, but I couldn't be sure. My eyelids were getting heavier, time was slipping in and out of focus. I caught a glimpse of the road signs. We had turned off the road that led to the city. "Hey, that's not the way to the city," I tried to say, but my tongue was paralyzed. A weight had settled over my body. The inside of the car had become freezing cold. My eyelids got heavier. The car had turned onto a forest road, dark, foggy, with thick trees. The road wasn't even gravel, not even dirt. It was like mud. The car bounced wildly, and I struggled not to throw up inside. I turned around to check on the back seat, curious about Jordan and Nate. They were gone. Jordan and Nate were gone. I blinked my eyes open and shut, and this time, they were there. But motionless, eyes open, as if they weren't breathing. My eyelids got heavy, everything turned black. A muffled noise came from the dome light above me, whispers. "He chose me. You chose the seventh car, and I chose you." I don't know how much time passed. Suddenly, I found myself in the middle of the forest, lying on the ground, not even wearing a shirt. My hands and feet were tied, my mouth taped shut, covered in mud. My ears were ringing. I was shivering. Was it from fear or the cold? I couldn't tell. But the real horror began then. A melody played from somewhere far, like a music box, but broken. I looked back. That man was walking through the trees, but it was like he had no legs. His feet weren't touching the ground. His knees didn't bend. He floated toward me. He came closer. I couldn't scream because my mouth was taped. His eyes were still that black gray. He placed his hand on my chest, like he was going to rip out my heart. He pressed harder and harder. He leaned his face toward mine. I couldn't breathe. Then he roared into my face. His breath hit me like a gust of wind. It smelled like a dead animal, just like the car, but more intense. Then everything went dark. When I woke up, it was morning. I was at the edge of the forest, wearing only my pants. My phone was gone, no shoes. My hands and feet were untied, the tape gone from my mouth. My feet were muddy and wounded. My palms had deep, still bleeding cuts. I ran until my knees buckled. When I reached the nearest town, I could tell from people's looks how bad I must have looked. A few people took me to the police. I gave statements for hours, but I couldn't explain what had happened, because I couldn't fully remember. Only flashes, sounds, smells. The police started an investigation in the forest. I was taken to a small medical center or something. The next day, Jordan was found inside a cabin further into the forest. His hands were still tied. Some of his curly shoulder-length hair had been cut. He couldn't speak. He just cried. When our eyes met, he just hugged me and cried. Later that afternoon, they found Nate in an old underground tunnel. Deep scratches covered his face. Strange symbols marked his body. He was found tied to a wooden board, crucifix style, unconscious. But he was alive. After that day, Nate barely left the house. He suspended school for that year. Jordan and I went back to school, but we just came and went, barely spoke to anyone. We didn't let strangers near us. What happened that night? Who did this to us? Who was that man? Why us? We still don't know. And we've never spoken about what each of us experienced that night. In fact, we've hardly spoken at all since then. Sometimes, I wake up at 3:17 a.m. I smell that scent again. I hear whispers echoing in my ears. He chose me. You chose the seventh car. And I chose you.